Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back this late at night. And the only reason why I'm wearing a hoodie at all is because it is it's gone stupidly cold in this room in the span of just a couple of minutes. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to do something a little bit unprecedented. I'm actually going to light a candle. That's what I'm going to do. There we go. Just to get as much heat in this small space as I can. So, there we go. So, Chris and nutrition. This is sort of like, for those at all interested, we're sort of getting very, very close to the end of his the cases about his body, rewritten and prepared for 2024. With this being perhaps the hardest one to get my head around, and then there's all sorts of things afterwards. But until we get to then, ladies and gentlemen, let's reminisce. Now, I feel like a large part of this article is going to be related to Chris's health generally, as well as his diet, his nutrition, and stuff we've covered a little bit earlier today. I'm trying to get my hands over over my candle just as much as I can, and there we go. So anyway, health disclosure. This article contains in-depth discussion of Chris's physical and or mental health. This page is not to be construed as a substitute for medical advice or a professional diagnosis. All diagnoses are either taken from outside documentation or based on amateur analysis. Bit like me. So, rated M for honest content. So, you've been warned, I guess. Food is both a biological imperative and cultural medium for humans. The human body is meant to run on a wide variety of foodstuffs for a balanced diet, and cultures around the food have created a multitude of dishes using available ingredients, mostly from animal and plant sources. More recently, however, food has become industrialized, which makes food cheaper and tastier, to the love of our hero Chris. Unfortunately, this industrial Western diet doesn't always carry the best nutrition. Culminating in the first thing we see here, something different today for lunch. I've been re-binging King Possible on Disney Plus, so I love K-pop. See this, 2 soft shell tacos and an order of nachos. He made what he calls a knocko, which is, he didn't make anything because obviously this is literally just straight from Taco Bell. Maybe he just ordered a separate shell or something like that. Maybe that's what he did. Cooking abilities. Chris claims that he cooks for himself 4 to 5 days a week, making his cooking a major source of his nutrition. He has said that he took home ec classes in school and that he owns cookbooks. However, when Jackie asked him to cook spaghetti, an incredibly basic dish, mind you, in a YouTube video, he dodged responsibility by claiming that Barbara had blocked the kitchen up with junk, or in his own words, she put a lot of crap in the way. So he instead mined the act and microwaved some canned spaghetti and meatballs. It can be deduced from this that Chris can't or doesn't cook, and simply buys microwavable meals every time he claims to be eating at home. Oh, that video gets a lot worse, by the way, because alone, or among many other things, is that Chris seems to be adamant in that just buying a packet of pre-cooked factory-prepared Swedish meatballs is somehow better than actually making meatballs yourself. And listen, I've made spaghetti and meatballs since I first started watching Chris 4 years ago, and I literally could cook circles round this meatball. And yeah, it literally can be. Again, when somebody's imagination doesn't even spring to the idea of actually just pretending to make stuff, let alone just mimic just peeling a packet open, that's about as lazy as it gets. In a letter written to Kelly Sheridan that was posted to Twitter, Chris claimed to have taken up basic cooking skills as a way to keep his mind more active. Well, to keep any part of your body active whatsoever, but then again, being active is not necessarily in Chris's forte either. Sad but true. In addition, Barb no longer cooks for Chris after he and Bob had turned down a spaghetti meal she had offered them. A turn down he claimed to have deeply apologized for making it even less likely that Chris can eat anything that requires to be cooked, let alone anything that requires time and preparation to be made. Which brings us to fast food. As a result of his minimal cooking skills, if any, and due to how even the simplest of tasks tire him out, Chris often prepares to eat out over making food by himself, which is a false economy, and it means that no wonder Chris has had issues with his finances many, many times in his life. He is infamous. He is an infamous fast food lover, eating at either McDonald's, Burger King, or some other fast food restaurant at least once a day. At least once a day? That's you can't really underestimate just how much that is in one day, and especially even in this economy. That is how much could that be in just 1 week? That's like nearly 50. That could be nearly $60 in just 1 week he's just spending at McDonald's. Also, he has been known to dine out at least up to 4 times a day, which is just absurd, beyond absurd. The fact that he's merely fat and not morbidly obese with such an awe-inspiring calorific intake and inactive lifestyle suggests a fairly high metabolism, one which will almost certainly not last indefinitely. That's true. The frequency of his fast food trips was confirmed in 2015 when a Cwiki Farms user sent him $500 to see what he would do with it. And the majority of it does consist of basically all of these, which is McDonald's, Burger King, restaurants, grocery stores, the kitchen, and his own bedroom. With how little space he has to do anywhere, well, we'll get into that in a second. In fact, actually, let's just get into it straight now. This is the actual receipt that Chris had spent. So from what we got here, we got Sheets, UPS, Walmart, Wim Supercenter, McDonald's, Sheets, McDonald's, Family Dollar. Well, I can assume this is like maybe a grocery store. Sheets, McDonald's. And by mind, can we just like El Algarve, so a Mexican place? I'm going to assume, maybe, ladies and gentlemen, a word that I very rarely use is that Chris spent all this money on himself and he didn't bother taking Bob anywhere. Or maybe, who knows, Food Lion, 91 cents, but then it was like 21.80, so maybe they bought something and then they decided to come back. Papa John's as well, which is ludicrous because any fool would knew already that would go straight to Domino's. Why would you go to Papa John's? Oh well, what can you do, eh? Consumption of food. Many, many times, Chris has been shown to be a glutton for all kinds of food, eating excessively in public places and during parties. Chris gets invited to parties? I didn't know that. Eating excessively in his complexion also gives insight into his daily nutrition, often showing various signs of acne and acne scarring. His most probable nutrition intake is as follows. Breakfast. Often nothing because he usually sleeps from 6 a.m. till noon, but when he doesn't do that, he travels to McDonald's or another fast food restaurant with a breakfast menu. Lunch. Something quick at home or fast food. Dinner. Dine out at a fast food place with family or have a poorly cooked microwave meal. According to Chris, he eats more vegetables than any other food group. The veracity of this statement is dubious at best, given what is known about Chris's medical history and health in general, as well as his tendency to lie. Yeah, most people who are on like Lipitor in their mid-20s are not healthy. Lipitor is prescribed for people who are like in their like late 60s and have histories of cardiac disease as well. During the father call, Chris told Casey's father that he was prescribed... that he was prescribed Lipitor for his high cholesterol. He claimed he stopped taking the drug in fall of 2009, but whether he was being honest, especially given the number of obvious lies he told about his health in course of the rest of the call, is uncertain. When Chris admits to going to McDonald's, he regularly for his meals, including the time in the father call, he will often fall back on another lie that he only eats the salads provided and drink the lemonade. Say it with me now, ladies and gentlemen. Bullshit. Will often fall back on another lie that he only eats the salads and drink the lemonade. This is ironic, as McDonald's salads were actually proven to contain more calories than an average Big Mac meal, due to the sauce that came with them. Chris also seems to be under the impression that lemonade is healthy because it has, or at least tastes vaguely like, lemons, despite them being just as unhealthy as any other type of soda. In 2016, he began listening to subliminal frequency hypnosis videos under the false belief that they would improve his health. Well, improving his health by making Chris do absolutely nothing special whatsoever to actually change his life just suggests that it's another false economy, believing that you can turn your life around for doing absolutely nothing special whatsoever. We all know this rhetoric by now, but it bears repeating. They're all bullshit. He liked videos such as lose weight super fast, eliminate armpit odor permanently fast, lower your blood pressure fast, hypertension treatment, and produce odorless farts fast. Good to know that. Do you think any of them worked? I sincerely doubt it. There is no sort of scientific and or medical advice that proves listening to binaural beats can do any of these things. The only real effect is hearing loss if listened to at high volume, and maybe a headache. In 2017, Chris had a brief online relationship with Jessica Quinn, who has a fat fetish and influenced Chris with it. The Solitude comic features an obese Rose Chew in an issue 12 after their breakup. Chris consumed a large bowl of ice cream, and then took a side photo of his gut saying, "This right here, this was all hers." This marks one of the only times that Chris has admitted that he has obesity issues. And by the way, if we can actually check this out as well. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So this is the ice cream in question, and there it is right there. Chris trying to show people that he was missing out. And you got this poor 5-year-old kid in the background looking over thinking, what the hell is he doing? Don't we all, though? Meanwhile, in 2019, Chris showed us his idea of a salad mostly made of unhealthy ingredients like bacon bits and croutons. In 2020, Chris claimed to make a breakfast omelette with scrambled eggs with ghost pepper sauce or spinach. I don't know how anybody could eat ghost peppers, but I'm not Chris. In October of 2023, Chris posted photos of his snack bowl consisting of fruits, a large chunk of dark chocolate, and a liberal amount of what appears to be whipped topping. Chris touted the vitamin benefits of the fruits among the snacks, but unfortunately for him, the nutritional benefit is outweighed by the excessive amount of sugars contained in the bowl. So, once again, people who think that that's just okay, it's once again a false economy. Quite a popular term I'm beginning to coin on this channel, I must admit. Jail food. Since the jail saga, Chris was incarcerated quite a bit. So it's safe to assume he broke his long-standing policy of not eating prison food and entered the regular prisonary diet alongside all his other inmates. Ironically, this is quite the improvement to his regular dietary habits, as prison meals are provided in equal quantities per inmate and no amount of entitlement will get you a second serving. Pretty much the only opportunity that Chris had to overeat was either by buying the food separately via commissionary money or donations, and Chris stated that he liked the selection of food items they had for sale, meaning that most of the commissionary money that he did get was likely spent on junk food, which is probably no surprise that he didn't particularly receive too much of it. Probably the best thing that could have ever have happened, and my candle was starting to die on me. Literally, the problem is, I'll get to like the problems with my candle towards the end. Just the issue is that literally, it's kind of hard to like almost formulate properly the idea that Chris's ideas of like, it's not so much addiction. Is it more addiction and it's more just out of habit? Because it seems as though, again, this could be something that Chris could just almost break a stint with like really easily. But the problem we find, ladies and gentlemen, and this is sadly the case, is that has he ever thought about actually trying any better? But unfortunately, no matter how much the idea of like prison makes him think that no amount of, begging or self-entitlement will get him anything. It seems as though Chris literally will only ever prioritize what he ever, wants in the moment, and virtually not much else. So make of that what you will. Once again, don't give money to Chris. It's the worst thing you could do. His ego is big enough already. There's no need to, make it any bigger. The quality of said prison meals, on the other hand, is debatable. Prisons in America can have anything from barely edible slop crawling with parasites to extremely nutritious meals that come in great variety and flavors. In any case, it's probably safe to say that even if Central Virginia Regional Jail is sitting in the former category, the meals provided would have been far healthier than what Chris is used to eating. In an October 2021 letter, Chris discussed the quality of the meals by writing that the food's mostly good and well. Not perfect meatballs, banquet diners have better meatballs, and chicken is often dry. Yeah, well, what did Chris think it was? A soup hotel or a soup kitchen? It's prison, Chris. It's easy life. This is the most you're ever gonna get for doing absolutely sod all. So I hope he made the most of it. As of the 3rd of May 2022, following his 3-month stay at Western State Hospital, which is for more mental health reasons than anything else, his weight noticeably dropped since he was unable to exploit the begging for junk food money loophole he once had access to, and his final mugshot was taken upon his release on the 27th of March 2023, showing him having shed several pounds. After exciting incarceration, Chris appears to have regained most of his lost weight, especially underneath his neck. Yeah, it's one of those things as well. You can actually determine sort of a person's weight, I believe, by the girth of their neck, and maybe among other things, if they have a double chin or stuff like that. But I think it's fair to say that how Chris managed to put the weight on so easily after 2 years in incarceration would be a very interesting thing to ask him. But if I haven't made a point of mentioning this already, don't go around trying to become part of Chris Tree. You just don't want to do that. Hydration and water consumption. Before 2020, Chris rarely drank water and was more focused on a lot of carbonated drinks and energy drinks, which have been proven to increase erratic behavior. There's a shock. This was such that an entire page of the Cwiki was partly dedicated to just estimating how much Coca-Cola he drank in the span of 2 years. I sort of did a calculation myself. It was roughly, on average, at least 3 cans or 3 bottles a day he was going through. That guy, how did he not lose a limb to diabetes is anybody's guess. Now, of course, you could say diet or zero sugar, but that's besides the point. Then, of course, there's the money, how much it costs to even, live on that. Said article revealed that on many of the days between the 6th of March 2007 and the 4th of September 2009, Chris drank about 1.8 litres or over 3 pints of Coke every day, assuming that none of it was drunk by his equally obese parents, so he could gain points on My Coke rewards. This represents a grotesque 195 grams, nearly 7 ounces of sugar per day from Coke alone, representing almost 800 calories or a third of it's more like meant to be the third of an average an American adult, but 1/3 of his daily calorie intake nonetheless. And to put that in perspective, Chris drank enough Coke to fill 10 oil barrels in order to get the amount of points he got. Needless to say, the effects were staggering. On record, he apparently consumed a whopping 120 cans of cola on the 9th of April 2008, the 24th of March 2009, and 15th of August 2009. And this didn't send him into immediate diabetic shock is anybody's guess. Again, maybe he just bought it and he didn't exactly drink it. But then again, Chris has never really wanted to be economic about stuff like this, so it's anybody's guess again. Before his arrest in July of 2021, Chris drank tons of water from a Glacier water bottle with an amethyst crystal inside. He believes that there are many health problems that drinking water in this fashion alone can cure, such as food poisoning. While this is not actually true, it's far easier to survive food poisoning by 1. Washing your hands and preparing food in a sanitary manner. It's at least far healthier than drinking tons of soft drinks. Ever since the discovery of himself being a CPU goddess Blueheart, he had used this bottle constantly as a way to charge up his powers. Whatever they are, but that's a subject for another day. In order to help further the merge into its future stages. The reason he went with the amethyst crystal is more likely the same reason that he uses his amethyst ring in the comics as his main source of power. So, therefore, Chris used this bottle as a way to inadvertently make his powers stronger. It didn't prevent him from getting arrested or getting to Quickfill, so no, none of those things are true, but let's just pretend we didn't know this. As of 2023, Chris has developed an interest in the popular energy drink G Fuel. Oh, for God's sake, no, not G Fuel. Likely because the brand is known to constantly release flavors in partnership with various game and media franchises. An unsurprising example being that he has seen looking at Sonic the Hedgehog themed G Fuel cans during a post-jail release shopping trip. Given the canned drink has an average of 300 milligrams of caffeine, equivalent to about 3 cups of tea, it's likely, or cups of coffee I should say, it's likely Chris may soon slip back into erratic behavior patterns. Well, that as well as just heart disease, and Chris's body is already like a ticking time bomb when it comes to this stuff anyway, so why you want to encourage it is anybody's guess. Now, the results of Chris's diet are things I've discussed in the Chris and Health section, so if you do want to check those out separately, you're more than free to do so. Meanwhile, obesity. Chris has been overweight for nearly all of his adult life, and obese for a large portion of it. Dental hygiene. Chris's teeth have obviously suffered greatly during the decades of constant sugary abuse, let alone if he's ever bothered, brushing his teeth. Well, no, going to a dentist or even doing something even more basic and brushing his teeth. Several videos which he exposes his teeth have revealed that his molars are extremely rotten and full of cavities, while his frontal teeth are yellowish at best and olive colour at worst. This, combined with his infamous lack of hygienic prowess, means that it's flat out a miracle that all of his teeth haven't fallen out at this point. That also may be down to what prison has done because of the lack of access to anything high in caffeine. Well, anything higher than, let's say, Pepsi Max, but that might be clenching at straws a bit. Behavioural issues. Caffeine is a well-known stimulant and can impair one's ability to sleep. Chris's drinks all have an amount of caffeine in them, from coffee to Coca-Cola. This is undoubtedly addicted to both, and cups of coffee were spotted throughout the hallway in 14 Branch Lane Court just before the coffee maker burned the entire house down. So, whether you want to say that's an indirect result of his addiction is the fact that it literally didn't make him think that what he was doing could destroy his house is entirely up for debate. Fecal incontinence. It is believed that Chris's diet is one of the causes for his fecal incontinence. The other one being ramming stuff in his rectum. But that's quite a different tale, as chronic constipation can be one cause of fecal incontinence. Chris's diet of McDonald's, microwavable food, and little or no fruit or vegetables in his diet is very likely ridiculously low on fibre, and thus a surefire way of causing constipation. And Chris being going on with this diet for who knows how long is going to cause irritable bowel syndrome and maybe another reason for Chris's problem with controlling his bowels. The cause of IBS is not known, and maybe another reason for Chris's problems with controlling his bowels. The cause of IBS is, well, the two major triggers are stress and poor diets. with wheat, dairy, and carbonated drinks being known triggers of IBS. Given that Chris is a testament to fast food not agreeing with him, however, being raised on a poor diet, it's likely he'll stop eating junk food anytime soon. And finally, denial of his poor diet, which is just the cherry on top of this cake, eh? Chris often denies his diet is doing more harm to him than good. In The Father Core, Chris constantly lies about his poor eating habits to an unimpressed Matthew Devoria. At one point, he went off on a tangent about how he stuffed vegetables and fruits down his throat. This was after Matt metaphorically compared his daughter's book reading to how much candy Chris probably consumes. Yeah, if there's one thing you probably should know straight up about Chris's eating habits, is that if there's one thing to like be grasped through a lot of this, is that if you needed like more proof that just straight up, if you're somehow still not convinced and think that it's possible to consume so much junk food and somehow still lead a very active and responsible life like Chris, then you're going to be in for a pretty nasty awakening, I'm afraid, my friends. And then things sort of get a little bit bad to us because of about what I'm about to add next, is that you may be asking yourself, ladies and gentlemen, and the amount I've tried to intersperse in this reading about, would it not be better off if Chris just straight up spent his money that he would on, you know, junk food, just go down to like a market, go pick up some like fresher ingredients, or even just get some cheaper like filleted sides of beef and just cook them and stuff like that, or just get some chicken, which is about as cheap as you can get, but you know what, you could do a lot with it. Would it not be better off if Chris just did all of these things and cut out fast food altogether, and just to save a little bit extra money and just to do things better? Well, yes, of course it would. Of course it would be better. But the point is that Chris would never even dream of doing such a thing as this. And the peculiarness of not just, and it's not just a health thing, it's almost down to an economic and maybe even a political manner, is that the less money you have, the less you feel inclined to actually spend it on dull, wholesome food. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have to understand is that when you are unemployed, meaning that when you are poor, harassed, civically depressed, consumed, bored, and miserable, you don't want to eat dull, wholesome food. You want something in theory that's a little bit tasty. Now, it's true, eating McDonald's or KFC is not in any way going to actually properly nourish you for the long term, especially if you want to live a longer and prosperous life without the risk of heart failure, diabetes, cancers, all the rest of it. But the theory is that they are nicer than crusts of brown bread and cold water. Now, again, maybe any of this wouldn't be an issue in the first place if it wasn't down to the fact that Chris probably secretly deep down inside probably enjoys this easy life, not the one in prison, but just the fact that he doesn't have a job, he doesn't actually have to really support anyone except whatever he really wants at the moment by crying for donations from his dedicated but rather small fan base, even back in the day. And this is just something that, as you get older, you sort of learn to understand, ladies and gentlemen, and it's called being responsible. And unfortunately, whether you want to say this is down to Chris's delusions, his mindset, his autism, his inability to accept change, the fact that nobody in their right mind would ever even think about helping Chris, because Chris will just throw it back in your face and demand more from you anyway, I think it's fair to say that the choices Chris has made are the ones that he's going to keep. You pay the consequences for the choices you make, ladies and gentlemen. And with all that being said and done, I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this article, and I cannot wait to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.